Hi, Catherine. How are you?
I'm good. How are you,
I'm
Luciana?
doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good.
Hi,
Hi.
Kate.
We got Keith here. Hi, Keith. How are you?
Hello. Yeah, I'm doing okay.
Hi. Good. Good. So I'm going to be back in just a moment, but we are live and we are on episode 16. Taxation funds the adversary. This is a great subject.
Yeah.
Catherine, you've done a lot of research on this. Where do you want to start?
I have. There's a number of ways at it, but I just wanted to start with a prayer to the Almighty that He gives us wisdom and discernment and strength, Almighty God, and that people will depart from their foolishness and start uh, worshiping Him, taking responsibility as He gave us for self-government in um, Genesis 1:26, and that we stop our idol worship, our idolatry of the people who run the private for-profit corporations masquerading as our government. And that includes the IRS, so-called. And I'm going to say what I say every time we deal with any of these problems. These are people-created problems. They're using a private for-profit corporation as a mask to hide their criminal intent.
Mm-hmm.
And they one thing we need to understand right from the beginning is that we are not, and I know that there's a lot of Bible verse about who we are and what our obligations are. If we are there are verses about how a slave should behave toward his or her master. Are we slaves? If we are, I'm not, but there are those who prefer their slave status. If you prefer your slave status, then you have to accept the terms of that enslavement.
Right.
And taxation is one of those. But it's not necessary because we have, it's been acknowledged many times that we are in fact not slaves if we will just take up our responsibilities and self-govern. And it's in their Constitution, it's in their Declaration of Independence that we, the people, are the sovereigns, the masters of our own destinies. And unless we give that up, and many people are willing to give that up and throw it away with both hands. And
Right.
I was just speaking to a man who actually had demonstrated to his loved one that it's possible to stand up and be free of oppression. And so she understood it not just because of his words, but experientially that yes, I can do this. And she chose slavery instead. To the point where she contacted a claimed creditor to get verification. Well, she was ready to just beg the creditor, name your price, I'll pay you whatever you want to make this go away. And the creditor responded with, we've already closed the case. We're not claiming anything anymore. No. I want to pay you something
Huh.
to make sure it'll go away. Yeah.
Even if it comes up in a number somewhere, and then someone ends up paying it, right?
we don't know why they said it was going to go away. She wanted to not be harassed anymore. And I get that. But they were admitting that they had no claim against her anymore. So why is she trying to resurrect it?
It should be the end of it.
Yeah, they said it was the end of it. The case was closed.
Yeah, if there's no claim, it's over.
It's over. She didn't want it to be over.
Oh.
I guess. Or she didn't. I don't know. I don't know. People are just behaving so irrationally. And
Yeah, just 2 days ago, we just got a notice from the county. I guess everyone got a notice throughout the county here of their taxes, the reassessed value of their property, about 35 to 40% increase for tax.
in their dreams. In their dreams.
Right. Right.
That's kind of a slightly different animal than the income tax, but it's really the same thing.
Right.
And if you look at the Marion versus Apache Indian tribe case, and I will, if you remind me, I will get that citation to you. They have a discussion. It's one of their cases. Now, I cite this case or any of their cases, not because I acknowledge that they possess, any authority at all. But if they admit something, we'll use it. And they admit that the power to tax is a power of sovereignty. So if they're the bosses, if they're the sovereigns, if they're the ones that have no accountability, that's what sovereignty means, is you don't have any accountability to anybody but God for your action. Unless you cause injury, harm, or loss to someone.
Right.
And so they acknowledge, they confess basically in Marion versus Apache Indian tribe, and they have in other cases in their system too. I think McCulloch versus Maryland, and usually it's some of the older decisions that the power to tax is only a feature of sovereignty. So if they're not sovereign, and they have also admitted they're not sovereign, the people are sovereign, we should be the ones taxing them, not the other way around.
Right. I mean, really, taxes to come in many forms it's really the same thing, whether it's a title tax on your car or your home. It's the same thing, right? I mean,
yeah,
it's just repackaged in a different venue, but it's still a tax, one way or the other.
Well, the Bible calls it tribute, more so than they do taxation. Although in Luke, they talk about this Luke 2, chapter 2, verse 1. Now, in those days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that a census be taken of all the inhabited earth. And I thought that was the part about taxation. But I think that there is a part of Luke that talks about, Luke 23, 1 through 2. This gets into Jesus being brought before Pilate. They began to accuse him, saying, "We found this man misleading our nation and forbidding to pay taxes to Caesar, saying that he himself is Christ a king." So it always boils down to sovereignty. That, of course, was not what Jesus said. He famously said, in looking at one of their coins, "Whose name is this? Whose face is this on this coin?" And that's when he said, "Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar, and render unto God that which is God's." But the key is that everything is God's. and as far as earthly authority, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. We have the role of Caesar in America. This is Chisholm versus Georgia, a 1793 U.S. Supreme Court decision, not a court, but it's one of their corporations that admitted that we, the people, are the sovereigns, so we're the ones that have the authority. So we are Caesar. We are sovereigns without citizens, sovereigns without subjects, I should say. One of the terms that they tend to use a little bit, almost interchangeably with taxation or tax, is the concept of tribute. And that's typically what is exacted from an enemy, not something that is extracted from the people who's certainly not people for whom you are servants. Even in the days of kings, they would extract. They would always call it something else, because there was sort of an understanding that tribute was something that was paid by the enemy, a conquered people, to the conqueror. And they didn't want people to start thinking, oh, are we a defeated, conquered people, and they're the enemy that conquered us? I don't think they wanted that kind of thinking going on. But fast forwarding to the present day, or at least more modern times, the Constitution, both versions of it, the 1781 and the 1787 Constitution, prohibited the direct taxation. And that was always considered a land tax. There was no taxing on that which you already own. So, and then later there was, when they enacted, this was before the 16th Amendment, there was a decision from their U.S. Supreme Court indicating that confessing basically that the 16th Amendment did not provide for any new taxing powers. And that was the Pollock decision. I'll try and get you that citation. It was later, they attempted to, drop that down the memory hole with a later U.S. Supreme Court decision, I think after FDR had packed the court.
Kind of like an overlay over something they've already passed, but then just kind of buried it.
Right. They do that a lot. They will enact something, right, and then, and particularly with the original 1781 Constitution that prohibited direct taxation, they knew that the people would not tolerate a repeal of it. So they just moved on ahead with the 1787 Constitution because they wanted to not just put prohibitions on themselves. They were getting awful full of themselves at that point. They wanted to grab powers for themselves.
Right.
And even so, they weren't bold enough in 1787 even to grab a taxation power. So that didn't happen until 1916. And there was a lot of understanding that would not implicate new taxes for a while until that was readjusted.
Isn't that when the Federal Reserve after 1913?
Right. But even after that, I mean, the income tax amendment, I don't think came in until
that was what, 2.5, 3 years later?
16.
Right.
16th Amendment says the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived without apportionment among the several states and without regard to any census or enumeration. But that the 16th Amendment did not go through the procedures that were required to amend the Constitution that had previously established that there was no taxation, no direct taxation. The problem that a lot of people, okay, here's the case that decided that the 16th Amendment, and this is a direct quote from Stanton versus Baltic Mining Company, and it's a 1916 case. That's Stanton versus Baltic Mining Company. The provisions of the 16th Amendment conferred no new power of taxation, but simply prohibited the previous complete and plenary power of income taxation possessed by Congress, well, which wasn't, from the beginning, from being taken out of the category of indirect taxation to which it inherently belonged, and being placed in the category of direct taxation, subject to apportionment. That's the key. They never will apportion taxation as they're required to do. People may remember that originally the whole purpose of the revolution seemed to be no taxation without representation.
Right.
And we've never had representation as required by the 1781 Constitution, which requires one representative for every 30,000 people. I don't think that's ever happened. So we've never had, if we've had taxation, we've had it without representation. I'm sorry, this is not as well put together as I had hoped it to be, because I'm jumping back and forth between their system and the lawful system, because you have to understand too that their statutes and codes are applicable to persons. They're applicable to taxpayers.
Because if you already decided to be a taxpayer, then you're consenting to their system at that point.
That's
so
right.
Considering you a taxpayer.
And a lot of these common law gurus will try and tell you all kinds of intricate ways that you can define yourself according to one of the 10,000 pages of the IRS code as being some sort of an exempt status, an unregistered foreign agent, or some sort of an alien, all kinds of other exempt statuses, which you don't have to claim. Once you start claiming that you are a this, you are a that, because you think their statutes and codes will protect that category of label, then you will find that that might work for a while until it doesn't, until they change it.
Right. They'll change something down the road and make you a part of that status that you thought you were.
Right. One thing that they will never do is they will never claim the ability to tax men and women, just like they never claim the ability to do anything, to legislate anything pertaining to men and women, because they know they don't have any authority. I know I have been preaching this over and over, and I was reminded how repetitious I am in a call earlier, but I have to keep saying it because people don't seem to follow up on the conclusions that you draw from that. If their statutes and codes never apply to men and women, call yourself a man or woman, and you won't, their stuff will not apply to you. Now, if you go into their fake tribunals, or you go into a so-called tax court, which isn't a court any more than their other so-called courts are, and you try that, you have undercut anything that you would ever say after that. You walk in there, and you walk in there as a slave. And then you can't go saying, I'm not a taxpayer. What are you doing in the tax court then? If you're not a taxpayer. And you could subject yourself to, probably not in tax court, but in other ones of their so-called courts, you start making statements that are inconsistent. I'm a this, I'm a that, but I'm here. I'm a man or a woman and living on the land, blah, blah, blah. Well, but you're here. So you're telling us you're here because you know that you're willing to act as a person and be subject to our statutes and codes. That's why you're here. If you don't understand that and you won't take one of our attorneys, then you probably need a psych eval. And that's what happens to a lot of people.
So I think it's important that you be redundant and repeat it often enough that people understand this.
Right. And part of understanding it is stop using the wrong words. You use the wrong words and your thinking is wrong.
Right.
Now I have I don't know if you're in position to do this or not, Keith. We might just wait till Luciana comes back, but I will just.
I got it.
Oh, okay.
Because it's not an easy thing, when you're born into this system, you use words that you grow up with and you assume that that's the way it is, but it's not.
That's right. So you have to, it took me about a year before I stopped bastardizing the language and the way they want us to.
Yeah. Catherine, did you want that pulled up?
Yes, please. Yes, this is a letter. Actually, I've improved on the original letter that I actually sent. And whatever you do not communicate with their fictitious legal entity. You communicate with the people who are running that fictitious entity. And you all can go check the Internal Revenue Service or IRS Submission Processing Center, which has various addresses, is in fact a private for-profit corporation.
Yeah, and I noticed there, seeing the first person that you're actually addressing is the actual, well, in this case, the man who's running that corporation.
Right. And what I really probably should have done, there is an IRS commissioner. Sounds like it's a a higher position than what these people are doing, but probably wouldn't have hurt to have addressed him. We have addressed him in other situations, and
Of course, we got to remember too, there's subdivisions of this corporation, that even though you're still addressing, but you're still going to address the man or woman in charge of them.
Right. And when you've addressed, if I address Bill Wilkin doing business as, IRS, blah, 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 and Aaron Collins doing business as IRS, in another location, then I've addressed their superiors, and I've addressed their underlings. This is not a formal notice. It's really just a letter of inquiry, and it's a notification letter. I do put the Social Security number in there so that they can locate the document. And have you got it? Have you got it posted there, Luciana?
Can you see it?
I'm just looking at my version of it, so I'm not.
It's up on the screen.
Okay, all right. Yeah. That's what I'm asking. Okay, good.
Yeah, it's certainly a good example, of what this all means. What this letter here you're showing.
Try to make 3 points. Well, and at the beginning, because I had previously unknowingly given my signature based on without having all the material facts disclosed to me. So it was a fraudulently induced signature. I don't get into all that in the letter. I just indicate that I wanted to correct any misimpression that I consented to be a United States citizen, a resident alien. That's one of the terms that people like to claim to be when they fight the so-called IRS. Or a resident alien, non-resident alien, individual, or taxpayer. I don't know that you'd have to say all that, but in case you ever did consent to be one of those things, that was erroneous. So those assumptions are not correct. And so I want to make the point. I'm not really making a point here, but I'm inquiring. It's a notification, but it's also a letter of inquiry to require them. And this is a common tactic to use when you're not really sure what is their theory. What are they thinking when they're going after me? And you're entitled to certainly do that if a debt collector is trying to go after you. You're entitled to ask for where's the validation of this so-called debt you think that I owe? And, you're entitled, and that's under the, according to their, they recognize it because it's consistent with their Fair Debt Collection Practices Act.
Right.
And they're required to do that. They know they're required to do that. It's not a strange concept for them. So when you don't know, what is your theory? Just ask them. If you don't have a theory, then maybe you don't. If you don't tell me what your theory is, then maybe you don't have one.
Right.
And then normally, if a man or woman claims that you owe them money, and I don't think Bill Wilkin or Aaron Collins is saying that I owe either one of them as the man and woman anything. I'm sure I don't owe them anything. But maybe their underlings claim that I owe them something. Maybe their superiors claim that. But as a woman, I'm not in contract with a legal fiction called IRS or anything else.
Yeah, whatever that umbrella or underneath that umbrella,
Yeah.
whatever
Right.
the subdivisions of that IRS term.
So I asked them if I ever signed a contract that required me, where I agreed to file this 1040 form, and if I signed such an agreement after it had been fully documented that you provided me, or you or your agents or superiors provided me with full and fair disclosure of all material facts, then that would be a legitimate contract. They recognize that in their commercial system, in their
I
uniform.
remember years ago, someone had sent me wanting me to sign a promissory note.
Okay.
Kind of the same thing, right? You're agreeing.
Well, if they want you to sign a promissory note, then they need to fully disclose
Right.
what the facts are that affect that promissory note. What's the consideration for it? Why do you think that I'm obligated? Why should I sign this promissory note?
Right.
And why are you entitled to extract that from me? And see what they say. And I like to put the ball in their court because, oftentimes people hurt themselves by what they say. So let's don't be the ones that are burying ourselves with our own ill-advised words, especially when we're on uncertain ground. They're going
Right.
after us for a reason, and it appears that there's no reason at all. But if there is one, we invite you to tell us what it is.
Right.
And then we go on in our subsequent notices and ask them, and indicate, there was no basis for you to harm me in this way or that way, for you to do this, for you to do that. But if I'm wrong, you have X number of days to tell me I'm wrong. And they won't do that. So that must mean, and it's explained to them, if you don't do that, if you're just silent, and if you continue to engage in this or that behavior, then you agree with me that you have no basis to claim this or that or do this or that to me. And if if you're imposing harm on me, if only wasting my time filling out useless tax documents, for which I bill on average $400 an hour. This is tricky work. You got to make sure you're doing it correct. If they want me to do that for free, no, I'm not doing it for free unless you say I agreed to do it for free. Where's that contract? Where did you tell me, where did you disclose all the material facts?
Exactly.
And they're not going to do it. They're not going to provide those. And then just to cover, the other bases, I invite them to disclose those, not only disclose the material facts pertaining to any such contract, but to respond by verifying the claimed debt, if any, that you say I owe. And you means them, their corporate superiors, their corporate underlings, anybody like that. And then you keep that letter and keep the proof that you faxed it or that you sent it by, and I wouldn't use registered or certified mail because that's getting sabotaged now.
Yeah, that's another issue too.
Right. Yeah, we address that. Y'all can go to our website, occr2021.com. And if you go to the pending notices, you can see the pending first notice in the matter of McCabe versus Arnold, where the U.S. Postal Service, U.S. Post Office seems to be incapable of
Yeah, their
delivering properly.
tracking is not accurate anymore.
Right.
It's either not delivered when they say it is, or it goes to another location and you find out that no, it got delivered somewhere else or got
Yes.
lost or whatever.
Right. And that's what's happened. So far, they've defaulted on the first notice, and I think they were, a few days ago, they were delivered the second notice, and they've
I
been
put the court website on the YouTube comments.
great, great.
I also put I don't know if you want to watch a couple minutes of the ex-IRS agent who speaks.
Yeah, yeah. And
I mean,
recognize people that this guy is,
oh,
a
actually,
relatively highly.
this is a woman. There's more than one that have come out, and then
Oh, okay.
their
Yeah.
their employment at the IRS was terminated because they realized there's no duty and no law for you to pay these
I
taxes,
think
and
that was the one
and
that
it's
you
all
had
and
sent
that
me.
it's all fraud, and they have spoken out about it and been terminated. Actually, this lady on this video, her name is Sherry something. After she spoke out about it, I think they went after her. I think they arrested her for something and really, really started messing with her, which is what they do. But if you want, I could go ahead and play a little bit of that.
Yeah, about how long is that? And do you have the ability to pause it at
Yeah.
different points?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. Just tell me when. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just do this.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
All right.
Hold on. Let me just share it real quick. Okay.
Sherry Peeljack was an ex-IRS agent, EPA, fraud examiner. She was working for the IRS. She was on the fast track to success there. She was doing very well, had received numerous awards for all of the work she did. And she realized that there is no law and that the biggest fraud was the IRS.
I tried to be the best at whatever I did. So when I got to the IRS, I hit the ground running. My first year in 1988, I got the fraud award. It's a big shaped in Georgia award for fraud. But I got numerous awards, and my biggest one is from the IRS commissioner himself back in 1995. It was Fred T. Goldberg. One of the things that I wanted to tip you off on as far as what the IRS does before I get into the story, they had, I don't know what they're doing now, but they had what's called a Market Segment Specialization Program, or MSSP. They would take different market segments, like ministers, and try to figure out how much money you were underreporting. Let's take beautician, for example. I'm going to audit her beauty shop. She owns the shop and she has some people working there. Based on the assumption that the IRS has that people don't report all of their money, but they like to put all their expenses on there. So granted, all her expenses are on the tax return, and I figure out how many dollars of this and that she bought. I can calculate a dollar figure. So I'll tell Sophia after it's all over and we're buddy. I just shock her and I say, well, guess what? It looks like based on my calculations, you really brought in $80,000 that you have to pay on the tax return. So here, you owe the IRS back $30,000. What would she do? She would sign off on it. I only had 2 cases in 7.5 years where somebody actually bucked at me. People are so afraid. The government and the media have got you guys so afraid of the IRS that you don't even buck them. Now, mind you, she might have left some money off. Maybe there was several times where she just didn't report the tax. And maybe that's why. Maybe she has no idea how much she quote unquote underreported. Maybe that was it. But they always acquiesce. They got one, anybody own a laundromat, they have one that will calculate based on your water bill how many loads will wash at your laundromat. And the point to all of this is what they do to people, and people just acquiesce to it. When I quit the IRS in 1995, and after maybe a year of being Jim Cleaver and realizing that was just not me, I hung my shingle, which in accounting terms or business terms is you start your own business. Now, you know that picture of Uncle Sam, the one that says Uncle Sam wants you? I used that same picture and I had it really big and I says, Uncle Sam wants your money, but I'm a former IRS agent. I'm going to show you how to get it back. You know, the people came running. And then these people start coming to me saying, I keep hearing that we're not supposed to pay tax. Or I keep hearing that the tax law is a fraud. And like I said, I was raised differently. I never would look at that person and say, you're a cuckoo. I wouldn't even think it. It was like, okay, in this back burner back here, I would think to myself, okay, there's some people out there that actually think that the income tax doesn't apply to us, or it's a fraud, or it's being misapplied. But I didn't do anything about it because, remember, I'm rolling around with my little businesses and whatnot. So one night maybe in early June, one of my pastor clients called. It was night. It was about 9 o'clock at night. And she said, you know what? I think it was maybe a Wednesday night after her Wednesday night service. She said, I've got this parishioner that just keeps bugging me about this income tax. She's talking about that we're not liable for the income tax, and she wants to talk to you. Can I give this lady your telephone number? And I said, okay. So maybe about 10 minutes later, this lady called me. She said, I have a question for you. Are we supposed to pay income tax or not? And I said, okay. Do you want the cuffed answer or do you want the real answer? She said, I want the real answer. I said, well, I really don't know. Even though I'm a former IRS agent, I haven't done the research, but I hear that there's a credible body of evidence out there that says that we don't owe income tax. I was okay. I mean, I took the information. I was sitting there listening like, okay. And, I said, okay, this lady had a lot of information. I don't know where she got it from. So a few weeks later, she called me again and she said, Miss Jackson, remember that information I told you on the phone? It's in the USA Today. Pull it up on the internet. Okay, so I got the USA Today. It was July 7th, 2000. And it says, Dear we the people, most citizens are not required to file an income tax return. The 16th Amendment to the Constitution is a fraud. And if you file, you waive your Fifth Amendment rights. I said, okay, that's some of the stuff she was saying. Now, this was a lot of reading. But I kept reading because I was very interested, being a CPA and into fraud and all that. I wanted to see what was going on. So here in the third column, it says no one has been able to collect the $50,000 reward offered by Bill Conklin to anyone that can identify the section of the Internal Revenue Code that makes a typical worker liable for the income tax. I'm serious about winning this $50,000. Okay, so it's at my desk. Basically, I just shoved everything off my desk and got the codes out, the regulations out, the tax guide I got on the internet to look at the Cornell University site, all these different things. And I started researching. And 2 weeks later, I said to myself, oh my goodness, we have a problem here. It doesn't look like I'm going to win this money. And I was sitting there at my desk thinking, this thing is a fraud. 2 weeks it took me to sit there and realize that. I didn't just look at the positive. I looked at the negative. I looked at the IRS site. All these things are going on. This thing is a fraud. Being a CPA and a former IRS agent, I sat there at the desk, I was by myself, and all these thoughts started going through my head. The first thought was, now I finally open up the codes and regulations. Because see, at the IRS, they trained us with these little guides. We didn't use the codes and regulations. We would get one of these and you would have to read it, understand it, and pass this little test. And all these little guides that I got, I read them and I made A's on all my tests. And I thought, and I guess the rest of the agents in training thought that the information that was in here was the same that was in those thick codes and regulations, but it's not necessarily the same. The things that are in these training manuals are not necessarily the same thing as in the codes and regulations. I learned that in my studying. And the time that I was doing the research, I also learned about the pocket commission. Now I'm going to let this go around the room, but y'all got to give it back. This is the outside that I purchased of the pocket commission that I had. And before I left, I had the sense of mind to make a copy. This is the little badge I used to flip out at people and say, give me your books and records. Give me your bank statements. Give me all your credit cards, And, people, okay, here, even the counties, I go to the county, do it. I go just about anywhere and flip this little thing out and get whatever I want. There's a lot of power nuts out there doing that, guys. Y'all know it. Half of you already know about it. There's an enforcement pocket commission and there's a non-enforcement pocket commission. And I started looking back at this thing. It has SER, Southeast Region. First of all, I'll read it. It has my picture up here and it says, Sherry Jackson, whose signature and picture appear above, is duly commissioned as Internal Revenue Agent and has authority to perform all duties conferred upon such officers under all laws and regulations administered by the Internal Revenue Service, including the authority to investigate and require and receive information as to all matters relating to such laws and regulations. And it has SER and some other numbers and an A. And based on this Internal Revenue Manual, A means administrative. So I'm an administrative clerk.
I wanted to get into, don't be intimidated by these flashing of badges and commissions. And, Keith commented on that because all that is evidence that they're working for a private-for-profit corporation, and that just because it looks official and you've been conditioned like one of Pavlov's dogs to be fearful when you see that, doesn't change the fact that this is just a woman doing a job who may or may not know that she's working for a private-for-profit criminal enterprise at that.
Right.
And she probably still doesn't know she was working for a criminal enterprise. Maybe she kind of suspects.
And she finally realized after she went through all the codes and everything else that, yeah, this whole thing is just a big scam.
Yeah, she did.
Right.
It's only got 2 more minutes. Do you want to listen to the last?
I wanted to just also bring up, for those who want to go to the code, and they may have changed the code number since I looked at this, but it's U.S. Code Title 26, Section 6331. That's 26 U.S. Code 6331, Section A, says that they can levy on the accrued salary or wages of any officer, employee, or elected official of the United States, the District of Columbia, or any agency or instrumentality of the United States or the District of Columbia. Understand now, United States, according to their own statutes and codes, always meant a private-for-profit corporation, just like District of Columbia. And by serving a notice of levy on the employer, but the word employee, just because you think you know what an employee is, doesn't necessarily mean that's what they are saying an employee is in that particular code section. When they use the word employee, it's to hoodwink the public to believe that means any employee working at any establishment within the United States or United States of America. But what it really means is a government employee who works for the corporation known as United States, which is not the same thing as United States of America. So again, that code section is 26 section USC 26 section 26 USC section 6331 section A, where they talk about when they can impose a levy, and it's only on officers, employees of the United States or any of its subsidiaries. Yeah, go ahead and play the rest of it. Is this something that's available though, Luciana?
I actually put it. I believe I put it on. Yeah, I put it on the comments.
Yeah, I'm glad you're playing this again. It's like the second time.
Yeah, on the YouTube channel. Okay, so it's got 2 minutes left. I'll go ahead and play it.
Okay.
Out there on the front lines. And I'm an administrative clerk with a non-enforcement pocket commission. Okay, so I'm starting to get angry here. Starting to think about I had to take bribes and get little tape recorders taped to my body and the little microphones on me and go in and take bribes from people. But, thinking about stuff like that, what they got me out here. And I'm thinking I really have authority. And this is administrative, non-enforcement pocket commission. That was one of the other things I thought about. And then I thought about, and I found out this is another issue, a levy versus a notice of levy. This is something that I didn't deal with a lot because I was an agent and I just assessed the tax. I wasn't a tax collector. I just assessed it. So this is a notice of levy. And someone said, hey, this is a notice of levy. This is what the banks get or your job or whatever. They said, look at the back of it. So I'm looking at the back of this notice of levy and it says section 6331, levy and distraint. And then it says B and C. And I'm thinking, it starts off with B? What happened to A? So I looked up A. And here's A. And it says levy may be made upon the accrued salary or wages of any officer, employee, or elected official of the United States, the District of Columbia, or any agency or instrumentality of the United States or the District of Columbia by serving a notice of levy. I'm thinking, but that's not most people. And then I thought about it. Now, some people, they have a job. 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 They have a jo That's not the person that works at AT&T or Bell South or Coca-Cola. That's not most people. Aren't people noticing that the A isn't on here? Aren't they curious about it? Why are they doing this? All this is going through my head during this period of time. Then I'm realizing that there's a rat in the camp. That's what I call it. But this is the straw that broke the camel's back. The Federal Reserve is not federal. How many of you did not know before today that the Federal Reserve isn't federal? If you did not, don't be shy. If you didn't know before today that the Federal Reserve isn't federal, raise your hand. Most people don't know that. 9 out of 10 people that I asked off the street don't understand that the Federal Reserve is a non-auditable private banking cartel. They are collecting 30.
Please comment about.
What if you could do SEO smarter
Great.
and faster
Oh,
with
His comment about having wages garnished, or so it hasn't been that long ago, and I suppose they're still doing it. They'll grab your automobile right off the street.
Right.
But the problem is with people who are working for corporations, and the corporation has a deal of their own because corporations, the people who work for corporations have their own contracts with the IRS in a different way, and they have agreed to do withholding on their employees. So even if you don't want the withholding, even if it's unlawful, even if it's illegal, even in their system, they will continue to do it anyway.
Right.
It's so that you never see the money that's withheld, and you're giving the IRS a free loan, and you think you're getting something, some kind of bonus the following year when you jump through the 1040 hoop, and you're getting your refund check back.
Even banks, the same thing, backup withholdings. They'll come in and say that, you owe so much because you received this, and they'll docket it take it right out of your bank account.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, you're giving them an interest-free loan every year.
Yep.
We need to stop doing that. So now there's a related concept, and that is, it's still taxation. They still don't have authority to do it as non-sovereigns, and because you don't have any contract with them, you don't have any contract with the artificial entity that they created, because it would be impossible to have a contract, between a man or a woman and an artificial entity that's nothing. Same deal with when you get your property tax bill, or their property tax bill. You own land that has improvements on it, has buildings on it, has a house on it, and you made the mistake of recording that deed with the so-called county recorder, who is an employee of another. The county it's not a county; it's a private for-profit corporation masquerading as the county, as some sort of a governmental unit. But she's just a man or woman. He or she is a man or woman operating this office, and they're going to keep, or their computer is going to keep spitting out these billings. And I think you had mentioned earlier, Keith, that they're increasing they're always increasing the billings.
Right.
And you can worry about claiming homestead exemption and this exemption and that exemption.
Still using their system.
Yeah, which keeps you in their system.
Right.
Well,
even cars and automobiles, same thing, right?
Yeah, well, it's not when you register a car or a truck with them, you're giving them ownership. You just have a certificate of title. You don't have title. They have ownership. You registered with them. You gave them ownership.
And then, of course, you get taxed on that if you transfer the title to someone else out of state, or you sell it, then you get taxed for it.
Right. Yeah, but
it's so hard. It's so hard for so many people to unlearn what they have been taught and have been the way they've been living their entire lives. And it's so hard for them to believe that they have just had the wool pulled over their eyes. And they just some people refuse to believe that this entire time they have been fooled. They rather say you're crazy, or rather not even look into it,
or that doesn't make sense. What do you mean? Right?
Than to admit, wow, I've been scammed all these years. And some people won't even look into it.
Because we've really been scammed since birth. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah,
we really have.
It's it's a lot that you have to unlearn.
You got that right.
And then there's the fear factor again, because they send their attack dogs after you.
Right.
If they don't get what they want, what they say they're due.
Again, they're still not. It's still a direct taxation. It's always been direct taxation, which requires apportionment, and their tax assessor never does that. But the bigger issue is, who are these people? They're just people, and they don't have any authority over your land. They don't claim to own your land. The corporation that they work for doesn't claim to own your land either. So, what exactly are you doing? One of the theories, the easy way out of property tax, there's two ways around the simpler way is just stop giving them the excuse for billing you for taxes. And their excuse is, well, we're providing a service. The county, the corporate county is providing a recording service. And I would suggest at this point that we, the people, so this is a missed business opportunity for somebody. We could have our own private recording service and record deeds in our own state. And I suggest that somebody who's very techie start doing that. And, if you wanted to, I think it would be better to have it a free service. But of course, nothing's free in their system. And you pay for it with your property tax. Your property tax they justify it, but by saying, well, but your deed is recorded. So you're just paying for the recording. Well, and they make sure through, their connections with the attorneys and the title companies that you can't just transfer, your land, as Joe Blow to Mary Smith. Mary Smith's got to get an attorney and Joe Blow's got to get an attorney. And then the attorneys will make sure that Mary Smith, the new owner, records the deed with the county. It doesn't have to be that way. Joe Blow can transfer his land to Mary Smith, period, and it's transferred. It's done. She doesn't have to record it. Now, recording gives you the benefit, I suppose, of it's an announcement to the world that, or at least to the people who regard their corporate records as being public when they're not, they're private records. But they will go to the county recorder's site and and they will look to see the chain of title and so forth. They wouldn't have to go there. They could go to a common law recording site and find the same information. If they find out that if you don't record the new deed, Mary Smith, who is the new owner of this land, is going to, she's going to have to, she doesn't have to, but to make sure, to give herself a little bit of extra protection that somebody doesn't try and sell her land out from underneath her. That's pretty unlikely to happen. You could always post signs in the yard indicating that the county, the corporate county's records about this land are inaccurate. Just that. So, in other words, the record owner still being Joe Blow, according to the corporate county's online records. That's incorrect information. If you were to be interested in buying that property and you go to the property, you will see that. You don't have to go to the corporate county deed records. If we had a common law recording site, people could go there too. But if you don't want to record your land anywhere, but maybe in your family Bible, and you have your deed, that's your record. You don't have to record it. A transfer happens with a car, a truck, a tract of land, any of that. It happens when the owner transfers title to the new owner by deed, by some sort of a written document, just to make sure it has some kind of formality. It'd probably be a good idea to have the signature of the original owner witnessed by a couple of witnesses and dated and so forth, and do a meets and bounds description of the land. If you want to refer to the corporate records, I don't see any problem with referring to that, but that doesn't mean that their records are accurate. It's just if somebody wants a reference to that, they could see that. But then if you're not recording, and I've had the experience of having the people at the who work for the corporate county jumping up and down that, oh, you can't transfer land unless you record it with us. If they're not giving you their satanic blessing, it doesn't exist. There is no transfer in their twisted brains. And that's not the law. It took me, a couple of months when I transferred property to a man that did not record to get them to understand that the property is transferred. Don't be sending me that tax bill because your records are wrong. It's not owned by me. Well, where he should record, he chose to not record. It's still transferred. Just because you didn't sprinkle your holy water on it doesn't make it not a transfer. This has been Anglo-American jurisprudence for a long time, that we the people have the power to transfer anything we want to anybody else. And there's the common law elements of a gift are evidence of title, intent to transfer, delivery of land often involves delivering of the key to the property, and that and you're done. Whether it's by gift or by sale, you transfer the property effectively. Now, if you don't want to sell your land, but you don't want to be You don't want it to be recorded and therefore you being forced by them to. You're not really forced, but they won't understand that. You're going to get tax bills. You have to take that property out of the name that it's in and let them know that your records are wrong. The property, I'm the registered agent for, or I'm the authorized, not registered, I'm the authorized agent for the owner and the record owner that you have. I have transferred the property to another man or woman. And I'm not going to tell you who that is because it's none of your business.
They want to make everything their business, don't they?
Well,
Oh, yeah.
I think every piece of your life is their business.
Right. And I say, if there's not a good reason for them to know something, don't disclose it. There's no point in it. They might use that against you. They probably will try and find a way to use that against you.
This reminds me too of real estate. Back in 2019, 2020, when the housing market was going sky high. People were paying 20, 30,000 more for the actual value of the house. And to me, that's another way of taxation. Right?
Well, I don't know. Those are because of market forces. I mean, what is the value of a house is what the value of anything is what a willing buyer will accept and what a willing seller will pay.
Right. But I mean, if they record it, then of course they're going to get taxed at that new price of whatever they paid for that.
If they record it,
right,
then yeah. So don't get yourself in a bind that you record it, but then you lie about what you paid for it. No, don't get yourself into that trick bag. There's no reason to do that. There's usually a better way than lying. And I understand the reason for the lying, but it's unnecessary. So what some people do, and I recommend it, is they form, say, Mary Jones has owns some land and she doesn't, and it's recorded. Now, some of the gurus will tell her, go to the county recorder and demand that they take that off of their records. How well is that going to work? Not.
No.
No, they're not. No, you can't administer that which you did not create. You didn't create their fake corporation, and you're not going to tell them how to run their criminal operation. But what you can do is what I just said. Mary Jones can form a private membership association, a common law, not just any, but a common law private membership association of herself and anybody else she wishes, and transfer the property to the private membership association. Call it, the Jones Private Membership Association. So Mary can then have somebody serve a notice on the county agents that your records are incorrect. I'm the agent. I am the agent for the record owner, because remember, the record owner isn't Mary Jones normally spelled. The record owner is the all caps Mary Jones.
Oh, right. Good point.
So, and we do get persuaded to do business according to, if we're forced into it, we can do business in the all capital person name that the cabal members have assigned to us at birth. We don't, there aren't very many ways around that. But and if that happened in the case of how your property is titled, then it was done by fraud. So you're not really responsible for that because you didn't know at the time, and they made sure you wouldn't know. But we do know now. They thought not 1 in a million will figure this out. Well, we have figured it out. The Colonel House that told Woodrow Wilson what a great scam we got going with our system of pledging with birth certificates was boasting that nobody's going to figure out our little scam, but we did. Anyway, back to Mary Jones, and she puts her property, she deeds it privately to the Jones Private Membership Association, and it's her, let's say, and her daughter, and nobody needs to know that. Nobody needs to even know that the Jones Private Membership Association exists. But her daughter
business to know that.
And she just notifies the county as Mary Jones, normally spelled Mary Jones, the living woman, that the property has been transferred because she's the authorized agent for the all capital Mary Jones, and she's just transferred it to a transferee, to another, to a transferee. Let's just call it that. And so she tells the county agents that she's transferred it. Their records are incorrect. And so she no longer has any obligation to pay for recording fees, since she's not going to pay for incorrect recording. And she's also the authorized agent for the transferee. She won't even have to name them. I'm also the authorized agent for the transferee, and the transferee does not want the property registered with you people. So there won't be any property tax billing going to them either if you ever find out who they are, and you're done. You're done. And that has worked well. That has worked well for me. You don't have to go through, hours and hours and days and weeks trying to establish, the chain of title going back to statehood to get your land patent, allodial title. We are already presumed as living people who are admittedly sovereigns. We're not subjects of the king anymore. We're entitled to own property in our own name. We're entitled to do with that property as we wish. So if we choose to be in a contract with a recording service, and we're willing to pay what they demand, then so be it. But if we don't want the service anymore, it's like, I've said before, if you have a landscaping service for your home and you don't want them to landscape your home anymore, you just give them notice that the service contract is at an end, and they should stop billing, because it's a service contract. It's a contract. So long as I pay, so long as you provide the service. And when it's over, it's over. It does not entitle them, as some of them have done, to send out hit squads to come kidnap you off your own land, charge you with, fake violations of their fake statutes and codes. But you have to really understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. So,
I mean, it's real extortion. that it's,
Yes, yeah, and that's what we do. And here's the thing: what if they don't accept all that? Well, then they're going to have it to do. They're going to bring some sort of an action in their fake private corporate tribunals they call courts. And then you get to send them serve them with a formal notice that of the same things you already notified them about, and you're going to inform them that their fake judge isn't really a judge because he's an unregistered foreign agent, as we've talked about before. I think the court isn't really a court because a court is the sovereign and is sweet, and a private for-profit corporation, which all their so-called courts are, cannot be a sovereign. And so they're not a court. They're not a court. They can't adjudicate anything. They're just running an extortion operation. They want you to believe that they're a court when they're not a court. And that's not to say when you go down this this process with them that there is nothing we can do other than, exercise our right of self-defense if they choose to come and terrorize us in our own homes. And we have allowed many of us, not all of us, but many of us have allowed the enslavement to go on so long they believe they're entitled to treat us any way they want. As with anything, it's much easier if you catch it before it goes too far.
Yeah, because then they're going to make you think that you're doing something wrong when it's the other way around.
Right. You have to really know your stuff. And I find that most people, they would rather be terrorized and spend their lives in misery than to learn what needs to be learned. And it's a real paradigm shift in your thinking to do that.
So yeah, I mean, if you're thinking of, what that mindset is, it's certainly, you want to ask us questions, most likely, ask us. We'll try to explain it. If you're confused on this, we'll try to, make it clear cut as best as we can to do that.
If you can talk to them, man to man, woman to woman, whatever, and get them to understand what they're participating in. And they may, I don't know what they'll do. I find they can't be talked to. They're so brainwashed themselves. As Mark Twain once said, a man would much rather, a man finds it difficult to, impossible to, he would rather believe that he's wrong. A man would rather be fooled than to understand that he has been fooled. He'd rather continue to be fooled than to stop being fooled.
Right.
Because it's embarrassing to have been fooled. It's embarrassing to be proven wrong, especially, can you imagine in my case, wrong for 40 some years.
Right.
When I should have known,
And you finally found out.
Right.
It's like finding out the hard way, If you want to try not to find out the hard way, maybe we should try to learn this and understand just what really is.
Right.
I mean,
because it's not going to get better.
No.
If we, and they even warned us. I think Jefferson said, if you wish to be both ignorant and free, you wish for that which never was and never will be.
Pie in the sky, you want to believe it is when it's really not.
Crazy.
Mhm.
Don't do that.
It's crazy. It's sad.
It
It
is.
really is sad.
Very
Just a
sad.
word on exemptions, just like with the, you know what, in the arm.
Yep.
When you claim an exemption, you're just saying, and I know I'm repeating myself, but
Yeah.
people don't get it. So, you claim an exemption, you're saying, yes, you are the boss man, and I do have to jump every time, you know, you tell me to, but I'm a special case. I'm exempt.
Mhm.
And here's why I'm exempt. Will you accept my exemption claim, please? That's not your way out of slavery. Your way out of slavery is not to play in the system. It's like in the movie The Matrix. You got to walk out the
Right.
door, walk outside of it.
Right.
Walk away.
Why would I want to put exceptions on something I don't need to be putting exceptions on?
Exactly.
We're not required to put exceptions on what their belief, their system is.
People are
People
too
like to,
comfortable.
especially.
Too comfortable with their lives.
Right. They're comfortable with it
too
because
busy.
they've had it for so long.
They rather go ahead and keep paying.
Why change what we already know?
Right. Yeah, they're too
You
busy.
know,
They've got work, they've got kids, they've got a home.
Right.
And they think, well, everything's fine. I'll just keep paying. I don't need to learn that.
I don't need to rock the boat.
I'm not going to
Hey.
look over there. I'm not going to read that.
Right.
I'm fine. All right. And that's why we're here today.
I mean, just get some basic understanding of it at least.
It's not going to get better just because you ignore it.
Not going to get better.
In fact,
it's going to get a lot worse.
Yes.
And the crazy thing is, like, for instance, I just emailed you both that PDF from the you know, the FB, you know what?
Oh yeah, why don't you post that or we'll post it in the comments section when it comes out tomorrow.
It's from 2010, and it's a PDF. I don't know how God had me run across this, but he seems to send me stuff all the time. And this is unclassified, law enforcement sensitive. It's from the Federal Bureau of, you know what? Domestic Terrorism Operations Unit. Okay. And it claims in there that, like, certain things that we're talking about, that means they've labeled us sovereign citizens and we're domestic terrorists, and they're doing training to alleged law enforcement officers who
they love labels,
who are really code enforcement officers.
Right.
That's what they are, and they are training them that if we discuss the things we're discussing here, that they are to look at us as we are dangerous, and they are to treat us and like we might hurt them. Can you imagine?
And we're the ones being hurt.
But so I just encourage people, just do a Google search for or on YouTube for FBI whistleblowers, because there's tons of them. And if you want to go ahead and believe this stuff they're teaching that people like us are labeled sovereign citizens and we're domestic terrorists, and then you need to look at some of these whistleblower videos and people who've resigned from working with, that this is very dangerous what they are doing, and putting innocent people's lives in danger, because they don't want us telling people the truth. They don't want us telling people, look here, go there, this is what the truth is, look at it for yourself. They don't want that, of course,
You know, it was interesting. It all started out that way, but it changed very quickly, didn't it? After, I believe, 1996, when they put everything in place to, you know, we came to where we are today with, you know, all the, what you can say, what you can't say. You know, we're going to put stipulations on this or that, you know. Now,
Yeah.
how far can they take it?
Yeah.
They seem to
Is there
think
an
they
end
can
to it?
define words now. They can own words, not just
Right.
define them. They can own words,
Sure. Right.
and they can. You know, if they say that black is white, and
Right.
white is black, then you can't say otherwise. And they're
And,
and
and,
they're
and,
and
and
they
if,
say
and
we're
if they say
delusional.
it,
Yeah.
and if they say it, people believe it because they have
They
that
do.
title, because they have that title, you
Yep.
know, and they work for that corporation, and people are just so, what's that word, hoodwinked, and they're just like, oh well, if they said it, it must be true.
It's got to be true, right?
Really, I suggest they open up the Bible.
Right.
I suggest they open up the Bible once in a while, you know, and find out some real truth there, you know.
Yeah, at least get a little bit of, you know, at least a little familiar. Have a little discernment. Understand you have your own thinking, and try to go with what goes in, you know, that doesn't feel right. And if you don't like what you're seeing, you want to take a look at an alternative and what should be.
I wonder if that Sherry Jackson, who was once a very high placed slave in the taxation corporate system, if she ever realized that she herself was a high placed slave and ever took steps to free herself, other than just to be content with being a whistleblower. Because actually, she endangers herself by stopping there. If that's, I don't know what she did. I've heard her before.
Yeah,
Really? Okay.
she's doing training other people to teach them that this whole taxation thing is a lie, uh, and that she actually worked within the IRS department.
Yeah,
And
I understand that. I hope she's not teaching them about exemptions, though.
All right.
There's ways to look like you're really, you know, you're a patriot and you're a whistleblower and you're on their side, but you're really just, if you're not empowering people to be able to stand on their own 2 feet, you're still keeping them crippled. You're still keeping them enslaved.
Yeah, with
oh,
stipulations
I
and
I just
changes, and you're
I,
still using that system.
I just found a whole bunch of videos. She was jailed and everything, and she does more videos about breaking the shackles, breaking the invisible shackles of the
There
IRS.
you go.
Mm-hmm. It's not real hard and complicated and requiring hours and hours and hours and hours of seminar training, any more than, there's people doing seminar trainings about the property tax.
Right.
It's not difficult. I would refer people, when we talk about the 3 notice process, I think we discussed that in episodes 1 and 2 of this broadcast. And you can see it in action on the OCCR2021.com website in the docket section.
Mhm.
The 3 notices are attached to every petition that has been filed in the Ohio Circuit Court of Record there. So I just wanted to mention too, well, I guess I have, the whole concept of exemptions is still keeping you in the system.
Yeah, I think it's important to note, you know, if you're accepting a service or a benefit, you know, you may want to think long and hard about that benefit or service that you're
Right.
getting.
And
What you know.
that's part of our, creating our own parallel economies, and it's not going to happen overnight. But if
Right.
we don't have that in place, like, the common law recording site that some tech people, could make some money doing, and, it would be a lot more, it would be an actual service for people, and it could be a one-time fee. There's all kinds of ways. We have to bring competition, real competition back in. And that's what creates excellence, not allowing these fake corporations that masquerade as our government to be a monopoly, really. We're the only game in town. You have to do it our way. Because
Right.
we said no, and we'll kill you if you don't.
Or have stipulations on it to say you got to do it, if you do this and this and this and sign this, then maybe you could do it. No, that's not the way it's done.
So,
Yeah.
and that's I see a dangerous trend in some of the common law people, and we can devote a whole broadcast to what to watch out for when you're trying to be free and you're seeing this website or that website that says it's about common law and really is designed to lead you right back into enslavement. For one
Very
thing, there's
true.
a lot of common law people, they want to restore the original republic. What exactly are you restoring? And they want to have titles. I would be very suspicious of those people. Some of them may be well-meaning, but they are leading people to think, and I'm going to be president, and you can be sheriff, and you can be this, and you can be that, and let's start raising money so we can get paid. No.
Yeah, are we going to create a hybrid system of what we already have and really? So yeah, we have to be careful, right?
Right. I think the whole notion that people have that if it isn't huge, humongous, and out of control, it's not government. No.
No.
We can govern ourselves, and I'll probably bring it up a zillion times, the Maywood, California case that was reported on by the New York Times. And the people of the town decided that they were tired of all their graft and, the thievery and the extortion from their so-called public citizens, public servants at the local level, and they fired them all. They just agreed, we're going to fire them all. They
Yeah.
hired back a couple. They hired back their water guy and their electric guy, and the sky didn't fall. They saved a whole bunch of money, and that was like 8 years ago. And they're doing just fine.
Oh,
Yeah, they took back some
where was that?
control.
Where was that, Catherine?
Maywood, California. This probably will only work well in a small town, which is why they want to herd us into mega cities.
Yeah.
Right.
So they were able to get everybody agreeing to this, which is what a republic is, we don't impose anything on you without your consent. A republic is government by consent. And here's, maybe a good thing to wrap this up with about taxation. My favorite writer from the 1860s, Lysander Spooner.
What's his name?
Lysander, Lysander.
Lysander Spooner.
Spooner, and you can find his essay on
that 1858, somewhere in there.
1867.
67. Okay.
And the essay is called "No Treason."
Okay.
He was talking about. He's got a lot of every sentence is a gem, but he's talking about taxation. And after he, talks about how what we're supposed to have is government by consent. Well, of course, when the South decided we don't consent anymore, we want to do it our way, the response was, you breached the contract with us, and so we're going to go kill you.
Right.
That was a remedy. No middle ground is possible on the subject of taxation, he says. And this is pretty short here. Either taxation without consent is robbery, or it is not. If it is not, then any number of men who choose may at any time associate, call themselves a government, assume absolute authority over all weaker than themselves, plunder them at will, and kill them if they resist. If, on the other hand,
Wow.
taxation without consent is robbery, it necessarily follows that every man who has not consented to be taxed has the same natural right to defend his property against a tax gatherer that he has to defend it against a highwayman, a highway robber. So he's got an interesting passage too, where he compares government agents to highwaymen, highway robbers, and morally speaking, the highwayman, he doesn't keep coming back and beating you over the head and taking the money out of your property. He does it once, usually. Unlike government that does it frequently, whenever they choose.
And we call that barratry. Know that term?
I thought barratry was churning up litigation. Yeah. Wow, you're good, Luciana. There it is.
No treason.
I actually found
Oh, good.
a PDF on it, and I
Oh,
can go
wow.
ahead and
Found-
I could put that in the comments if you like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
He really, for writing in 1867, and he was still traumatized by the millions of, the humongous loss of life in the 1861 to 1865 war. And he really cuts to the chase. And unlike a lot of writers from the 19th century, I mean, he's very easy to understand. And he really cuts to the chase.
Wow, and how it holds true today.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. He saw it all coming. This was before Lincoln created the first executive order, before the country went full scale
Right.
corporate in 1871. He
Yeah.
was writing 4 years before that. He knew exactly what was going to happen, and sure enough, it did.
Saw the writing on the wall. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I just, as always, if anybody cares to begin to free themselves, y'all can reach me at WLJAradio@AOL.com. That's WLJAradio@AOL.com. And I hope to put that in the comments below, assuming we don't get censored this time.
Right.
But yeah, because this topic, like the one that was the topic in episode 9, which got banned by YouTube, is
how long did it take before we got banned on episode 9? You remember? It wasn't very long.
Wasn't very long, was it?
It was only a couple of days.
Couple of days, that's it.
They had it off. Right.
So that's why I think it's very important to really, pay attention. Because if they can censor you in a couple of days, or, you don't know.
If anybody who wants to volunteer their tech time, because Luciana has saved even the banned episodes. Well, we only have one banned episode so far. And we may get to a point, particularly if this one is banned or another one is banned, that we will go to another platform. And because I understand that YouTube,
they can take it down, they can ban it. Luciana will always
Yeah.
have copies, and our friends in New York that will always have copies before they could possibly take it down. We will always have backups,
Right.
so no worries about that.
Yeah. And it's always a good idea to get your own copy if you can, and get whatever you can, and save it to your computer, flash drive, or external memory. It's important, just
right,
for your own reference.
right. So I suggest people get started, little by little, and with what's in front of you to deal with. If you're dealing with a traffic ticket or whatever you're dealing with, address it sooner rather than later. It'll be easier if you address it sooner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've got anything else. If you all do you all have anything you want to add?
I was looking for that. What's that quote about? You're always learning until the day you die. I forget what that quote is, but there's a few quotes like that out there, because it's sad that people think that you get a certain age and you don't need to look nothing up. You either know everything,
Right.
or you don't need to learn anything else. You're good. You're content. You're something like a fool. It's a fool who thinks that
I wonder
you're
if
done
that's
learning everything. When I find it, I'll put it in the comments. But it's so true. I mean, you're learning, or capable of learning, until the day
Right.
you die, unless you're a fool. Let's be
Right.
honest, and you just don't want to learn anymore.
Or you
Right.
just sit down and
Okay. Okay.
ignore what new learning or what teachings are out there, and you just totally ignore it, or just refuse to read or learn anymore.
I know for me, it was very difficult to make the paradigm shift from the thinking that had been driven into me during law school, and to stop thinking of law as something that other people could force on me.
Yeah.
We do live under the law of the ultimate sovereign, but not under the sovereignty of any man.
Right.
But it and I came close, actually, a time or two, to thinking I'll never understand this. Part of that was because I was following a woman whose initials are AVR, because there is a
Oh.
lot of fake stuff out there
Right.
designed to confuse you.
Yeah.
And there's another guy out there whose initials are DS, who's doing a lot of stuff that will lead
Right.
you down the wrong path.
Yep.
And make you convinced that better to be a slave than to go through this hell that these people are putting you through.
Yeah.
And I again urge folks to, don't do anything if you don't understand it. If it doesn't make sense to you, don't do it.
Or at least ask questions until you do understand. And never stop thinking, never stop learning. You're on a journey your whole
Right.
life until the day you die. And then you don't stop.
But I had to, I knew that there was something else that I wasn't seeing that was going to be a solution. I knew it was a solution, but I couldn't see how it fit together.
Right.
And I didn't see any way I was ever going to figure that out.
Isn't it amazing how opening up the Bible and prayer will open up your eyes?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I noticed, the more sometimes I'll, look at a verse and I'll look at it again later, like a year or 6
Right.
months,
You learn
and I see something
new.
different. I say, oh, now I get it.
That's the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, that's
Sometimes,
discernment too.
yes, yes.
Talking to us.
That's why they call it the living word.
Right.
People just need to get into it and find out for themselves. It's amazing. It's beautiful. And I just want to share this last screen real quick for everyone. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Because a lot of people fear them. They
Right.
fear them. And
Yes.
this is why they don't want to research and look any of the stuff we're talking about. They don't even want to. They're afraid of them, of the mean man, of badges, and of what they can do. And it's a shame because they don't realize how big our God is, powerful. And you have him, and you really don't need to fear. And I could
No.
just see them watching, saying, "Oh, really, really,
Well,
really."
even them, they have to understand they wouldn't be here either if it wasn't for, them being created to begin with.
Right.
If
And they don't seem
realize
to
it.
understand that they're not, they might think that they're bosses over us, but they're just slaves too.
Right.
More so than we are because they have bought into it.
And they made their own set of rules or laws or that are not.
And
They're-
there's many of us that are praying
they're-
for them, praying for them. I think there's still hope for quite a few of them.
If they repent, because a lot of them have
Right.
participated in a lot of really, really horrible crimes, and they need to repent from that before they can move on.
I mean, I know we're all not perfect, but we all have to be,
They themselves need to do a lot of research
Yeah.
on some of the stuff we're talking about too. I mean, they think we're crazy, or this 3-letter agency taught them
Right.
that we're dangerous, and
Right.
what we're exposing to people is crazy and dangerous. And well, they need to research it themselves, and they might realize they're on the wrong side of what's going on here.
Well, we encourage them to research what we're saying is nothing, that they can't learn either.
And
They
those
wanna
that
change.
think that their bonuses and their retirement is
Right.
too beautiful of a thing, that they're not going to give that up. So they're going to do what their boss says.
Right.
And the irony is that's just a carrot that's being dangled, and it can be jerked away just as easily.
Right.
And it gets jerked away on many of them. So
Because
many
they say
of
it's
them.
just a job. Well, that job can be taken away
Mm-hmm.
just very easily.
Or the price that they had to pay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's really sad.
I think some of them are starting to realize that threat that hasn't just gone away, and that could jeopardize that prized retirement they think they're going to get anyway. So,
Catherine, I think I just shared this with you yesterday. An entire police department quit from a small town. I forget where it was, but
Wasn't that in Minnesota?
yeah, I saw that.
Was it?
I think it was Minnesota.
Yeah, it was in Minnesota.
Yeah, and the news tells us, it was all about the pay or something, but I'm quite sure for many of them that was only one of the factors. I think a lot of them are realizing what's really going on.
Yeah.
And it's not what they've been told.
Nope.
Even in a small town, I think they're getting directives from, the parent corporations that they don't want to They never thought they'd have to
Right.
comply with.
I mean,
and
I
then-
even know, even from their meetings, from a small town, they were taking marching orders from the main corporate headquarters
Mhm.
and bringing them to their small town, which is not supposed to happen, but they did it anyway. So that's the kind of thing that's been going on.
Yeah, they're going to be,
Yeah.
and they probably already are being told that they're going to be
Right.
taking their marching orders from
Yep.
not just the District of Criminals, but
Right.
but the Europeans now, the unelected bureaucrats at
Yeah.
The Hague or wherever, Geneva.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well,
All right.
thank
Well,
you for being on tonight, Keith. You're not usually on with us, but thank
Oh,
you.
no, I'm glad I was
Yes.
here.
We
Really
appreciate
appreciate it.
Really
And
good
thank
thing
you.
shared today.
Thank you, Catherine. God bless you
Thanks.
both.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll be back next Thursday. You guys have a great evening.
All right.
Everybody take care. Good night.